As I wake up for the day in Sorrento, a town across the Bay of Naples from Naples, my teacher quickly reminds me of the chance that we may not be able to visit the island of Capri today. I find myself nervous, given that I heard Capri was arguably the best part of my class's trip to Italy. Excitement fills me later when my tour guide confirms that we will go. The four of us, the teacher, 2 other students, and me, all load onto a bus, and the bus driver drives us down to the steep, winding road to the waterfront of Sorrento. We wait around 30 minutes before a ferry comes into the port. After what seems like hundreds of people exit, we board the ferry. Over the Bay of Naples, a silhouetted Mount Vesuvius pierces the horizon, on the way to Capri. Soon, we arrive at the port of the island of Capri. The view leaves me absolutely wonderstruck. The island of Capri is split into 2 halves, Capri and Anacapri. Homes priced at 25,000 euros per square meter dot the sloped landscapes all the way up to the magnificent cliffs, which rise on the east and west sides of town. Advertisements for the famous Capri watch dot the walls along the waterfront. Soon after we arrive, the tour guide herds us into the town with 2 other groups, where we are given a tour of the most glamorous parts of town. Everywhere I go, I hear perfect English being spoken, despite this being an Italian island. Many buildings have Latin inscriptions written on them, and most appear old. We are led past a hotel whose cheapest room costs 250 euros a night. The tour guide follows up by telling us about a celebrity who rented out the entire hotel for a few days. The tour guide leads our group past the hotel into a street with designer shops on either side, inviting you to spend your life savings. We walk by a chocolate shop with a chocolate fountain in the window. Finally, the tour ends in a small town center. We are told that the cappuccinos in the shops around the square are magnificent. One of us goes down to try to get one and are shocked to hear from them that these famed cappuccinos cost no less than 10 euros. After around 30 minutes of relaxing, the group is well-dressed people dot the small winding sit down and enjoy some quiet time before going to the neighboring Anacapri. On the side of the road, lemon trees grow. The lemons are a far cry to what we normally see in stores. Wrinkles cover the mini football-sized fruit. We stop in the countryside to visit Carthusia, a small perfume maker exclusive to Capri. Naturally, most of their perfumes had a citrusy smell. Our tour guide through Carthusia is a salesman who tries to sell us perfumes. I didn't realize it at the time, but just like everything else in Capri, the perfume is massively overpriced. I find myself looking at a 150 euro price tag. When the tour guide ushers us out of Carthusia, we move on to the famous gardens of Augustus. I find myself in awe of the gardens, which are small but shaped beautifully. Lining the outside of the gardens are statues of famous Romans. Despite their beauty, the gardens do not come close to what we see next. We walk up many stairs to a sublime lookout over the crystal clear waters around the island. In the distance, the waters of the Tyrrhenian Sea line the horizon. Colossal cliffs line the side of the island. White homes dot the slopes leading up to the cliffs. 2 giant, tooth-like rocks point out from the water. I learned later, using maps and photos, that the rocks are called the Faraglioni, or stacks in English. A small area separates the Faraglioni, perhaps enough to let a small boat through. I can imagine the photo opportunities. Before the trip, we had been told that we would participate in a boat tour around the entire island. The tour, of course, was canceled before coming due to choppy waters. The 2 tooth-like rocks seem oddly familiar. I felt as if I had seen them in a movie, but I can't place where I remember them from. It would have been cool to take a photo of me between the 2 rocks. On the lookout, a seagull flies up to us. It is surprising how the animal could see us and yet feel no sense of danger. However, one fellow tourist walks up to the bird and effectively scares it to the other side of the lookout, but I continue observing it. Homes once again dot the landscape. I mistake it first as Marina Grande, but it turns out to be the smaller Marina Piccola, where boats launch and people can swim. A tiny peninsula juts into the water, appearing similar to that of the Navy Pier in Chicago. Beyond the marina and homes, massive cliffs reign, covering the horizon. Little did I know, those colossal cliffs would be where I would go next. The tour guide corrals us back into our tiny buses and drives us up SP22, a small highway that is the only way to drive from the touristy Capri to the relatively unknown to the outside world Anacapri. On the way, I take pictures of the road, which is scary because there is only room for 2 cars going opposite ways. SP22 is on the side of a cliff. Nevertheless, the driver chooses to drive the bus fast. Suffice it to say, I am terrified. As such, I'm increasingly relieved when we arrive in Anacapri. The town is not nearly as touristy as Capri. Rather, Anacapri feels like a small town. Tourists, in contradiction to Capri, do not rule the streets. Instead, Italian-speaking locals walk around the generally empty roads. The locals live in the upper level of their local businesses, undoubtedly built up over decades of hard work. Surprisingly enough, their appearance of homeliness makes me feel more at home in Anacapri than I felt in Capri. Soon after arriving, my classmates purchased some gelato from a local stand and we relaxed before lunch. After around 15 minutes of relaxing, we decided to eat lunch in a local, relatively inexpensive restaurant. The restaurant overlooks the water, an incredible sight. I realized that Anacapri truly has the same beauty as Capri. I begin to fall in love with the little town. I begin to realize that Anacapri is unlike any place I have ever been. Upon finishing lunch, the guide tells us to explore the town for a couple of hours. I must confess that I find myself disappointed to see a Capri watch store. However, I decide to give the town a break for having a Capri watch store, because I realize that the store's advertising is not as obnoxious as it had been in Capri. Alternatively, for someone who has an education in Roman culture, Anacapri is a gold mine. Many of the places we see are small businesses and preserved homes, which have inscriptions in Latin for us to interpret. We enter into La Casa Rosa, a preserved Roman home. Directly inside of the house is an inscription written in Latin. My Latin teacher asks us to translate the words, so that we get practice in reading inscriptions. The practical nature of the work helps me understand why I had taken Latin for 4 years. All of the features of the home seem to replicate what we had learned in class about Roman homes. The home is red, as the name may suggest, and boasts an atrium with rooms around it. A large female statue is put at the back of the main area, typical, as I remember, of a Roman home. We leave the house and continue looking around the ancient museums and local businesses. Much to my dismay, the tour guide tells us that the time was coming for us to return to Sorrento, and to do that, we must leave Anacapri and return to Capri town. In Capri town, my classmates and I spend our last hour on the island, walking down the beach and taking pictures before we get back on the ferry to Sorrento. Contrary to my tone, I do not hate Capri. I could go to Michigan Avenue in Chicago to get much of the same atmosphere as I perceived while in Capri. I could look at pictures to marvel at the beauty of the island. Admittedly, many people would enjoy the retail center nature of the island town. I instead would go crazy in the shopping medium if I stayed there for longer than a few days. The beauty of the landscape makes up for the obnoxiously glamorous tourists. If one can find a calm spot away from the glamour, such as the gardens of Augustus or a lemon tree orchard, the island is beautiful. I find the atmosphere of Anacapri unlike anything else, which is what makes the little town wonderful. I am grateful, however, of Capri's location. Capri filters out all of the tourists from Anacapri who vacation there only for a glamorous setting surrounded by a semi-American feel. One must fight past consumerist Capri, over the cliffs of what feels like dangerous roads to be able to experience the authentic, one-of-a-kind Italian island experience, Anacapri. Anacapri is what makes a trip to the island worth the money, not glamorous Capri.